This is an engine mount. This is also an engine mount. And these are engine mounts as well. In this video, I'm gonna cover what an engine mount does, why it's so important, how to tell if you have a bad one, and how to replace it on a 99 sweet Mazda Miata. So I love when car parts tell you exactly what they do right in the name of that car part. And the engine mount is exactly that. It's a mount that holds your engine into the car. And some people call them motor mounts as well, and I'm actually totally cool with that. You'll probably hear me call them both throughout this video. Hey, and big thanks to Advance Auto Parts for teaming up with us on this video. They've been such a great partner on most of this Miata goodness. So yes, it holds the engine in the car, but why is that so important beyond, like, how would the engine stay in the car without something like that? The best way to really understand that is to describe what happens when an engine mount fails. The more critical one is an improperly placed and held in place engine. And what that means is as the engine mount wears or breaks or fails in any way, it doesn't keep the engine where it's supposed to be. Like, duh, right, Charles? So if this is our powertrain, our drivetrain, whether we have front wheel drive or rear wheel drive, does not really matter. And our engine mount fails, that allows the engine to move back and forth, front to back, side to side. This can result in engine components hitting other things, say a serpentine belt hitting a frame rail, or the engine itself hitting maybe a fan in the front of the car. This also can disrupt all of our drivetrain angles. When we have too much movement in the front of the engine, that can mess with our prop shaft, it can mess with our rear differential. On a front wheel drive car, it can mess with our axles and that too. I've even seen engine mounts fail so bad that the engine pops up and hits the hood. There's also another component that we have to look at, and that is NVH, or noise, vibration, and harshness. Noise and vibration can be explained very, very easily because noise is the stuff that we hear. Vibration is what we feel. That feedback, the shaking of the engine that all engines have, if the engine mount is not functioning properly, can come through the subframe, through the body, into the vehicle, into our steering wheel, into our pedals, into our seat, and we'll feel that shaking of the engine because our engine mount is not absorbing and accounting for engine vibration. Harshness is a little bit trickier to understand if you've never felt what harshness in a vehicle feels like. Imagine loosening all the bolts of your subframe and driving your car. You're gonna feel the clunk, you're gonna hear it, but you're also going to have a level of severity to that clunk. And that's really the harshness factor. This is the effect that that bump or the shift has on the components of the vehicle. And when it comes to reducing engine vibration and engine feedback into the cabin of the car, the engine mounts are one of the key contributors to that. Now, the mounts in the Miata are pretty straightforward and basic, but other vehicles that, let's be honest, are more refined and more comfort-driven will have a different style of mount. Some have fluid-filled mounts, some have active engine mounts that are maybe electrically controlled or vacuum controlled. Pretty much, the nicer the car is, the nicer it rides, the better quality engine mounts you're going to have. Which also means probably the more expensive those engine mounts are going to be to replace. Now there are pretty much infinite ways car parts can fail, but when it comes to mounts, there's 4 or 5 really common ways that they can fail. Number 1 is flat out wear. Engine mounts are a wear component, especially when it's something simple like bonded rubber. And that normal wear and tear can come from age, and from mileage. Both are pretty common. Another one is horsepower changes and driving styles. A manual transmission car may be harsher on the engine mounts than an automatic. And the more power that you put into the car, 1, you're going to probably need to upgrade the engine mounts, and 2, the more flex we're going to have in that engine, which can cause more wear and tear on the mounts. Also, if you're upgrading your engine mounts, be prepared for more of that noise, vibration, and harshness. In order to keep that engine from flexing as much, we have to densify the rubber or the poly of the mount, and that's going to send more feedback into the cabin. Another one that I've seen a ton of, and it really doesn't take as much impact as you might think, is any kind of accident or collision. It can twist all kinds of stuff in the car that you're not really accounting for and actually break the engine mount or cause the engine mount to wear considerably faster. So if your vehicle was in an accident, even if it wasn't directly in the front or related anywhere, take a look at those engine mounts because they could be tweaked, they could be damaged, they could be flat out broken. And finally, leaks. Oil leaks, especially on a lot of engine mounts, can cause that rubber to break down and deteriorate much faster. This is a huge issue if you're running poly bushings because they're a lot more susceptible to damage from oil contamination, be it engine oil, transmission fluid, power steering fluid, pretty much anything really, can accelerate the wear and failure of engine mounts. And everything I said about engine mounts really does apply to transmission mounts as well. Now, on the black R32, we have an engine mount on the passenger side, a transmission mount on the driver's side, that center pendulum mount or dog bone mount on the bottom back side. Some cars even have the front mount too. The Miata only has engine mounts. Everything else is kind of held in together with the powertrain or the power plant frame. So we really only have two mounts that we got to worry about for this video, which is awesome. We're going to start our diagnostic process for a bad engine mount with an under hood inspection. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to look and see if anything looks out of place. Is one side of the engine sagging way down versus the other? Is the front lower than the rear? Usually your engine is not perfectly planed underneath the hood, but if an engine mount is severely collapsed or even broken, you may have one side of the engine or the other sagged way down. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go around our engine and we're just going to look to see if we can see any damage. A really common one is impact to the fans up front, maybe the serpentine belt hitting the fans. As you can see, this engine's swinging quite a bit when we put some load on it, but even just shaking it back and forth by hand allows the engine to move quite a bit. And we can do something similar to this one too. Now, is that good or is that bad? We might not be able to tell simply by moving it back and forth with our hand. You can even start the car up, have a friend rev the engine to see how much it moves. As you can see with the R32, with a failing mount, that engine moves a whole lot when you rev it up. Now, there will be some normal amount of engine movement, and this will vary vehicle to vehicle. Now, you might find that smoking gun just by doing a visual inspection or moving it a little bit back and forth by hand, but you may also not. For our next step, let's get in it and take it on a drive. We're going to be listening for any kind of abnormal clunking noises, especially when we do something a bit aggressive with the car. So quick snaps of the throttle, quick stabs with the brakes are all going to cause the engine to move in a much more dramatic fashion than a simple ease on our accelerator or ease on our brakes. If you're driving a manual transmission, another thing that you can really pay close attention to is the ease of shifting. Oftentimes when an engine mount has failed, it pulls our shift cable or pulls our shift linkage in an awkward fashion that may make it difficult to shift gears. In fact, difficulty shifting gears can be a pretty common symptom of a failing engine mount. And once we've done our test drive, time to get up underneath and do our visual inspection. Hopefully you can put your eyes on the mounts themselves. You're going to look for any leaks, any cracking if you could see the rubber or polyurethane, whatever the mount is made out of. So we don't have an extreme failure of the engine mounts on this car, but there's a couple of reasons why I want to replace them. One, it's an unknown maintenance item on this vehicle with 160,000 miles on it. Two, this vehicle was in an accident. I'm going to go ahead and replace both mounts on the Miata. Oftentimes, it's actually not a bad idea to replace them both at the same time because they're going to probably be the same age, have similar wear, and if one is bad, like leaking or broken, odds are the other one is not far behind it. If you have one mount that's been bad for an extended period of time, it's going to be even more stress on the mount that was good, so they're both probably bad, so especially on a car like this, just do them both. And if it has a transmission mount that's of similar design, it's probably not a bad idea to just go ahead and knock them all out all at one time. Before we start taking everything apart, we are going to have to support the engine. There's a number of different ways to do that. My favorite way is going to be a floor jack with a 2x4 or a 2x6 up underneath the transmission or engine oil pan and just pull up on the engine enough to take the stress off the mounts. The other great thing about that is oftentimes you don't have to buy any extra stuff. However, if you'd like to buy some extra stuff, there is another option, and that is a sling that goes across the engine compartment, and we can support the engine that way. I did some test fitting on the Miata, and I didn't really like how it fit. So first up, we need to get the car up in the air. If you're using jack stands, make sure you're using proper lifting techniques, chalking your wheels, and doing all the safety stuff that you need to be doing. Let's be safe. Let's also get started. It's time. I'm removing the wheels and the belly pan for easy access. This might not be required, and boy, Do these Miatas have so much belly pan hardware? I wonder if it thinks it's a VW. The very first thing that we're going to need to do for our engine mount replacement is locate our engine mounts. There are so many different ways that this can be set up, so it might be a little bit tricky. Typically, if your engine is transverse mount, the mounts are going to be accessed from the top side. Transverse mount engines are typically, but not always, on front-wheel drive vehicles, and the engine is going to be parallel with the front of the car. So in the R32 here, the front side of the engine is actually on the passenger side of the vehicle. The driver's side is where the transmission mounts up. On cars that have a longitudinal engine, which means the front of the engine is typically right up at the front of the vehicle, closest to, say, the fan or fan shroud, most often these type of engine mounts are accessed from underneath. Next thing we need to do is figure out what kind of overlap we have and whether we're going to do both mounts at the same time or do one at a time. In the Miata, the engine mounts share a common mounting point, the lower subframe of the vehicle. So there's going to be some significant overlap with what we're taking loose. Compare that to the R32, we definitely don't want to take both engine mounts out at the same time. If we take both engine mounts out on a transverse mount engine, the alignment can get real weird and wonky on us, and it could be much harder to get it lined up right. Some longitudinal engines may behave similar and you don't want to take them both out at the same time. In our case though, in order to get enough room to get the mount out, we'll at least have to unbolt both engine mounts from our lower subframe. This won't really cause any kind of issues because all the weight's still sitting on the subframe and the subframe is still bolted to the car. If you're not sure which one you can do, go ahead and support your engine first. That way you don't have to worry about anything falling or slipping. The way we're going to support the engine on this job is to take our floor jack, stack up 1 or 2 blocks of wood, roll that floor jack with the blocks of wood underneath our engine oil pan, and then gently crank the engine up. You want to be careful not to go up too high, but we do want to make sure that the floor jack and the blocks of wood are what supports the weight of the engine. Now, if you haven't done this yet, remove both nuts and washers that hold the engine mount to the subframe located in these little recesses at the bottom of the subframe. Once we have our engine supported and we have our lower bolts out as well, we can go ahead and take out these 3 bolts that bolt the bracket to the engine itself. Now, it's important to pay attention to the lengths of this bolt. That last one that I took out was a bit longer than the other 2. So make sure you're paying attention and keep your bolts organized. This next part's probably going to be the trickiest, and that's getting the actual mount out. You might have to play around with how high the engine is lifted up. I did find that if you bring it out through the front, that's probably the easiest. Here is our old engine mount. So this is the lower bracket that sat up against the subframe. This is the mount itself, and then this is the bracket that bolts up to our engine. As we can see, there is also a nut inside of here that we're going to have to take out. So here is our old mount. Let's compare this to the new mount. Boy, you can see a clear difference in these 2 mounts as far as how much they're collapsed. Just for the sake of fun, let's go ahead and measure that. So what I'll do is I'll measure from here to here on both the mounts, and we'll see how collapsed that rubber is. So right here we're at 36.6 millimeters, and that right there would be 36.6 millimeters. You can see how collapsed it is. So we're collapsed, boy, about 5 millimeters, 6 millimeters, I guess about 6 millimeters difference in height. Think about how little 6 millimeters is, but from a clearance standpoint and how the engine behaves, 6 millimeters can be a pretty big deal. We'll clean our brackets up, then we'll go ahead and get our new mount installed and then get it back in the car. It's also worth pointing out, look at how this mount is, one, cracked right here on the top, what would be the top side closer to the engine. But look at how the whole thing is kind of shifted. So if you trace the N, it's sort of pushed towards this direction. If we compare that to the other side, the N is straight up and down. So straight up and down, sort of shifted to the side. Kind of crazy, but pretty cool. So not only was our engine sitting lower than it was supposed to, it also looks like it was shifted. It's probably going to be worth spending some time cleaning and degreasing these brackets. It's also not a bad idea to go ahead and clean and paint them if you want to do that. I really like this epoxy paint for these kind of things. Let's go ahead and put our assembly back together. This is the lower piece that bolts to the subframe. Our mount snaps into here. Now the nice thing about these is they'll only go in one way. So it has to go in the proper way, which is fine because it only goes in one way, which was the way I had it the first time. There we go, just like that. You want to make sure you're paying attention to the orientation of your mount if for some reason the mount that you have goes more than one way. We'll also notice with our other bracket piece, there's this little nub right here. That nub lines up with that square there and kind of goes just like that. The torque spec on these nuts is 42 to 58 pound-feet of torque. I'm gonna target right in the middle, right at 50. And boy, these ranges for torque specs kind of drive me crazy. And now our assembly is ready to go back in the car. We also want to make sure our mounting surface, both on the engine block and on the subframe, are relatively clean. They don't need to be spotless, but we don't want a big chunk of grease or dirt or rocks or anything preventing our engine mount from sitting properly. Go ahead and get our mount, sneak it in. You want to make sure you get it lined up inside of the subframe as well as lined up with our engine block. Now, because this mount is much taller than the one we took out, you may have to adjust the engine. Move it up a little bit, move it down a little bit. It really all depends. Don't be afraid to move it just a little bit if you need to get everybody lined up. Then I like to start all the bolts first before tightening anything down. Once you get them started by hand, go ahead and run them all the way in, and then we're gonna torque all three of these bolts to 27 to 38 pound-feet of torque. I'm gonna target right in the middle at right about 32 to 33 pound-feet of torque. I also like to tighten these bolts in kind of a crisscross pattern, as best that I can anyway. So we got the passenger side taken care of, minus that fastener that goes through the subframe. We're gonna leave that so we have more flexibility to move the engine up and down. The driver's side overall is gonna pretty much be the same as the passenger side. However, on the driver's side of this particular car, we have the steering shaft and we have the exhaust system that are kind of in the way. So that's gonna make it a little bit more challenging. When I took the driver's side mount out, it actually came out in two pieces. It was pre-broken, which is just yet another reason I'm really excited that we're doing these mounts. Now going back in, I found what I think is probably the easiest way to do this. If you try and go through where the exhaust is and where the steering shaft is, you might be able to get it through there, but boy, is it going to be a hassle. What I found is actually dropping it down from the top side works quite a bit easier. You have some coolant lines there, but you can easily move those out of the way. Of course, you probably don't want to do this while your car's boiling hot. I went ahead and removed the air box just to give myself a little bit more room, but you don't have to do that. Just makes it a little easier, and well, I can put a camera there to show you how I did it. I did find though, if you leave the cup off of the bottom, put the mount down, and then put the cup on, that made it a bit easier to maneuver the mount into place. Just like we did for the passenger side, we're gonna get the mount all lined up, the bolts started. I also found that when I did the driver's side, it was easier to start the bolts and lower the engine down a little bit so that the stud went through the subframe on the bottom side. Then I tightened down and torqued the bolts that went from the bracket to the block. Once that's done, we can lower the engine all the way down, making sure that our studs go through the subframe. Then we'll tighten the nuts on the bottom side down, get our floor jack and everything out of the way. In my case, put the lower belly pan back on and install and torque our wheels. So all in all, not a bad job. We have one engine mount that was completely broken and one that was very well collapsed. For a lot of cars, this is a pretty straightforward repair. You want to make sure that you're following the repair manual for your specific car. For example, the R32 actually has measurements that you really should be taking to make sure that our engine mount is lined up properly. If you don't do that, you can get the whole powertrain twisted and out of whack and end up having some issues with that. Make sure you also pay attention to any hardware that may be replaced. Any questions or comments, drop them down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Big ups to Advanced Auto Parts for supporting this entire project. We got some more work to do on this Miata before she's completely done. With that, I'm out. Have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.